In Malaysia, the whole issue of corruption and the highest risk of corruption is in public procurement. We all know that for a fact. We all know that. Over the decades, over the years, you have so much of scandal in corruption that deals with that particular area. Okay? You have the ventilators case. You have got the vaccines. You have got LCS. You have got Scorpion scandal. You have got so many other numerous scandals that deals with public procurement. We all know it's a massive problem. NACP, NACS already mentioned this is the biggest risk factor we have in our corruption fight, right? Bear that in mind, think about that problem, and realize that the law was put in table in Dewan Rakyat on Monday, and it was passed on Thursday. Such an important bill, such a crucial bill that deals with our biggest corruption problem was passed in 3.5 days. It's a 91-page document. How can we do that? How can we pass an act like that in such a short time and for such a massive problem, right? So that's our first issue. You need to realize, wherever CSOs here, we all have been pushing for this act. We want to have a public procurement act to regulate the issues that deal with public procurement. We have all been pushing for many, many, many years. So we are, in fact, proponents of the act, but we cannot accept the bill in this current context. What it actually does is actually codifies the problem. So one of the excuses given is the fact that, the minister has already got the act those days, you know? And we know many of the scandal happens because there are some form of interruption or interference with the minister or those in power. That's happening. The issue now is this. You are actually codifying that power. You're legitimizing that power into a straightforward procedural issue. So that's the concern that we immediately have in terms of the bill. We have the list of all the MPs that said yes to the bill. Every one of them. Now, what we want to say is, now every MP here now is personally responsible for this bill. Any other scandal or corruption issues that happens from now onwards, they are going to be responsible. The first issue we saw in this act is you have the finance minister who is empowered here, but the other problem is, who is the finance minister? It's also the prime minister. Have we not forgotten the issues of 1MDB? Are we so naive to think that it will not happen again? Let's be serious. You know, we have to be sure this thing will not happen again, and this doesn't solve those problems. Look, this act allows the ministers massive control, okay? Now they can actually approve mega projects with no ceiling. Discretion powers are theirs. Now, the other concern we have is you have a public procurement board in the system, in the act, all right? Whatever they recommend is not bound by the minister. The minister can choose to accept it, or he can choose to disregard their recommendation. That is the amount of power that it has in terms of power. Now, if there is a deadlock in the procurement board, nobody agrees or disagrees. Again, the minister has the power to make that decision. He can override their decision. And also the most important thing, we talk about independence and all that. The board is appointed by the minister. So all that issue that we've been fighting for, the separation of Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister, the independence of the AG and PP, the independence of MECC, all that we're fighting for, now you codify the power saying that executive control. You give that power. You do the same thing again, which we've been fighting against for all this while. Right? So next. The appeals board. I think Arif will speak more on the appeals board, but basically, again, it is not independent. The appeals board is also appointed by the minister. we go back to the same problem we always have. The executive controlling everything. This is another example. Now, in good governance, we have an issue called how to identify risk factors that deal with corruption. Now, you have a new registrar, powers to register. Before you can get any contract, you have to be registered in a particular registrar. And it's through an authorizing body. This technically is now, actually what our reading is actually trying to codify and entrench cronies. There's nothing stopping them to make this into a crony list because they have the right to reject without any reason any applicant. So again, the discretionary power is wide. So nothing stopping them from preventing a party or a company that is aligned to an opposition party. Whereas you allow all your cronies to be part of the list. Again, this is a gatekeeper problem, which is a high risk for corruption. It's entrenched. Potentially, you are entrenching a list of cronies and legalizing that process. So again, risky, extremely risky. And there are a few other issues deals with enforcement over it. I mean, we have to have some kind of investigative powers to look at documents, fine enough. But I think the other issue is, why is the power given in this particular instance so wide that it's actually more powerful than the police? Now, the other issue is also legitimizing the context of conflict of interest. When you have, I think it's the procurement board, right? The procurement board, if whoever has got conflict of interest in a particular contract has to recuse himself, right? It does not apply to the minister. The minister can still say, oh yes, there is conflict of interest. He can still sit down there and carry on, and there is no repercussion. At least those days when it's not codified, okay, the minister or anybody in power think twice, oh, that's my son-in-law or that's my child, I shouldn't be around there. People will think something is wrong. This allows that. There's no need for him to recluse or her to recluse himself or herself. Again, you're codifying all the bad habits. You're allowing the bad habits to be codified. That's even more dangerous. Argument that's always been raised. I think we saw a TikTok yesterday from, Yobin talking about how this prevents Alibaba or rent seeking. Okay? Now, yes, it does say that you cannot subcontract without the approval of the authorizing body. All right? But who is the authorizing body? It actually allows you to control who you can subcontract. It doesn't prevent you from subcontracting. Now you have to get approval of somebody to authorize who you can subcontract to. This is another example of how you're going to actually entrench crony networks. So it's not true, in our reading of the Act, it is not true that this Act will solve your rent-seeking or your Alibaba issues. It will not. If not, it will legitimize the process. Now you have an authorizing body already said, okay, this person now, you can subcon to this party who is in the list of the registrar. Everything now is above board now already. Whether they are crony ke, they're not crony ke, they are friends ke, they're nepo ke, nepotism ke, it's part of their process. Nothing is wrong. Okay? So those are some of the points that we actually want to raise.
When we talk about the process, I think, our concern is about the process because, before the PSA, Parliamentary Services Act, we can see a lot of laws being amended or being enacted without undergoing the due process of consultation. Yes, engagement, yes, they had this engagement, but sometimes, it is just like a window dressing. No, not as an engagement because at the end of the day, when we see the bill, it doesn't reflect what we have discussed in the engagement process. So that's the reason why we need to have PSA, or we need to empower the Parliament. And I think all of us have known that the last March 2025, government have reenact the PSA. And just recently, in conjunction with PSA, the Parliament have amended the Standing Order 80B clause, where it is interesting because previously we only have the PSSC, Parliamentary Special Select Committee on Financial and Economy, which was very ad hoc basis and which less power, but it was upgraded to be the permanent committee. But our question is, now you have the PSA, and now you have amended the standing committee. You have upgraded the PSSC of Financial and Economy to be the permanent committee with, with a lot of power, maybe budget, and also in terms of the volume by participants and so on. But at the end of the day, why should you put in a rush, like Pushpan said, that 3.5 days being tabled and then being passed in the Parliament without consulting the committee in the first place? We have to respect the committee because it is a Parliament. But when you say about separation of power between Parliament and executive, this is how it works. You table in the committee in the first place, and then the committee will decide. Even though some might say that it will be passed all the way, but at least you have to respect the process. And I do believe if you undergo the process, at least a lot of things can be discussed transparently, because in the committee it is bipartisan in nature. We can give more ample time to the opposition MPs who are in the committee to debate or to discuss in the first place. But now, what worries us, of course, we are happy to have a PSA and to have that committee, but at the end of the day, nothing much can be done. There is nothing hope if government do the same thing. Just ignore the PSSC or the permanent committee, and then just bulldoze whatever they want to do. Especially in terms of enacting the law or amending the bill. Thank you.